What if telling your truth meant losing the person you most longed to be close to? When Neena Perez published her first book, Hit Me With Your Best Shot, she knew her family might not approve. What she didn't expect was that her own mother wouldn't speak to her for 8 months. For many women, a broken mother-daughter relationship is one of the deepest heartbreaks we can carry. But Neena didn't stop there. She pushed through the silence, confronted the pain, in one raw, unforgettable moment, found forgiveness and healing with her mother. Neena's story is filled with impossible odds, abuse, teen motherhood, poverty, and violence. And yet she has transformed the survival into strength and now helps women reclaim their worth, build businesses rooted in their gifts, and lives that are aligned with their purpose. In this episode, you'll discover first how to stop outsourcing your value and claim it from within, how to turn survival into undeniable strength, and how to move from fear to bold healing action. This is the essence of season 3 of UnCeiling You, knowing yourself deeply so you can rise, connect, and build networks that last. And if you're ready to take those conversations deeper, join me inside the Unsealing Zone, our community for unsealing your courage in real time. Let's get started. Neena, I am so happy to be here on Unsealing You with you. And I'm excited for people to hear what you have to say because it's all about really seeing your worth and bringing it forth and letting that light that is inside you out, unsealing that light, like unsealing it for everybody, including yourself.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So your story begins with enormous odds stacked against you, abuse, being a teen mother, and in poverty. What helped you to start believing that your future would look radically different from your past?
I think what started it for me was when I got tired of just surviving. I just didn't want pain and distress and depression and anxiety to be like the permanent place where I live. And so when I started to discover what that meant for me and started to dig into faith and what faith meant to me, it gave me a bigger vision. And it also made me realize that my circumstances were actually a gift, not a curse. So I didn't need to know how exactly, because I already knew what my story had in it, all the trauma, but I just needed to believe that I didn't have to still be there. I didn't have to be a victim of what happened to me.
Now, and what would you say to someone listening who still believes that they're not allowed to have more or want more?
Then I would push back on that. I mean, who told you that, right? Who told you that? Who told you that you had to settle? Who told you that you're not allowed? Okay, maybe when you were 2, you weren't allowed to do anything. But as an adult, you are completely allowed and you make your own decisions. Okay. And you're not selfish for wanting more. You're not selfish for standing up for you, for being courageous. And you have to be able to allow yourself now because nobody can give you that permission anymore. So don't, if you need permission, then I'm giving it to you right now. You have complete permission. You're allowed. Right? But God didn't design you for living the bare minimum. At least I don't believe that. I believe he designs us to impact the lives of others. I believe he designs us for overflow. I believe he designs us to connect and to live a life that's full, whatever that means. And that doesn't mean that life will be all, roses and wonderful and everything. Life is a homeostasis thing. It's a balance thing. You're going to have good. You're going to have bad. And I think we just need to get that life is going to come at us in different ways. But we should be allowed to live that life because it is our life. And that's the only life that you have. So just try to think about it like, okay, so talking to someone recently and they were talking to me about how they got a headstone for a family member that passed away. And they were like, it was so, so sad to look at the day that they were born and the day that they died. And it made me think of an episode I did about what's your dash, right? Because we all have a starting point, what day we were conceived or born, and we all have an ending point. Everybody, 100% of us are going to die. That's just how it is.
We're
But what's
not
the
getting out of
dash?
this
And
alive.
we're not getting out of it. Yeah, we're not getting it. Exactly. But what's the dash in the middle, right? When you go to a headstone and you see the first date and the second date, and there's a line in between, what's the dash in your life, right? What did you allow yourself to do or not to do? Because at the end of the day, that is your dash, nobody else's. So if you need permission, I think that me and Natalie are giving you full permission. You're allowed, right?
Yes, you're allowed to let that light out.
That's
Now,
right.
you created a coaching framework rooted in purpose, healing, and co creation. Yet none of that happens without self trust. And so, how did you learn to trust yourself as a leader when maybe the
Mm,
world had given you every reason not to?
man. And it really did give me a lot of reasons not to, right? I mean, being hurt as a child, molested as a child, and I was almost murdered by my first boyfriend. Pregnant at 14, had a child at 15. Like I had a lot of reasons, to not trust myself because things were done to me, which brought a lot of shame and unforgiveness and all of that, but also things I did myself, decisions I made also that really I didn't trust myself at all. And there are times that ugly thing still pops up where like, are you making the right decision? And all the things, right? But I had to reframe survival. And I had to realize that it is evidence of strength. I actually learned to survive horrible things. And so that meant that I actually have survival skills. And I actually have strength and I've actually overcome a lot of things. So, I had to start valuing myself, and trust came when I stopped outsourcing my value, when I stopped, making other people, other things, other jobs, other positions be what told me what my value was. So that's when my trust came, when I stopped outsourcing the value and realized that it belonged to me. I realized that God trusted me with this life and trusted me with my story and trusted me with the traumas. And the reason I say that is because I had to catch up to that idea and to the thought that God trusted me enough to know that I would do something with the life that he gave me. And that means impacting one person at a time, one moment at a time. And so our lives, Natalie, I believe do not belong to us. I believe our life belongs to others, to helping others overcome. And so that's how that's really how I had to learn to trust myself, right? When everything was coming against me, telling me, nah, you're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not wise enough. You can't be trustworthy, right? And so reframing all of that is really what helped me. Survival is strength.
So, can you tell me a little bit about outsourcing your value? Can you dig into that? What does that mean?
When I was, corporate, right? I felt valuable if I got the promotion, if I got the next step on the ladder, if my boss told me I was good, if I got recognition for my work. That was outsourcing my value. It was not deep within me. I never felt good enough, right? It's what we now call imposter syndrome, right? Never felt good enough, smart enough, wise enough. I never felt any of that. I didn't go to college until I was 30, 35, right? And the reason I went to college at 35 is because I had a son at 14. I was pregnant. 15, I had my son. And then I got married to my husband, my ex-husband at 21. I had a second kid. So I had two kids by the age of 21, working two jobs, trying to pay bills and survive and all of that. So my value never came from somebody telling me I had worth and value, somebody telling me that they can see something in me. It was all outsourced. I always gave it to the power to someone else to tell me what my value was, whether it was from a dollar bill, from a position, from something that I created that somebody enjoyed. I always outsourced that value until I started to source it within me and say, wait, Neen, who are you really? What is your value? How do you see yourself? How do others actually see you when you leave the room? What is it that you bring to the table? And I started to have a little bit of an attitude, Natalie, like, you know what? If I can't come to the table, I'm going to build my own effing table. How about that? You know what I mean? And I started to realize that I had value and worth actually. And that when I speak in a room, people stop to listen. I didn't know I had that. When I was a kid, I remember I won an award in school. I won Best Storytelling Award because I had to go up and tell a story in front of this huge audience. And I was a little girl. I must have been like, I don't know, maybe 8 years old. And I won an award. I won an award and I beat all the other kids. And after I won the award, Natalie, I walked out and I was the only person without a parent in the room. Yeah. And I just remember all the other parents going, "Oh, I feel so bad. Oh, I feel so bad." Like I heard them, right? I'm a kid, but I can hear, and I just was holding the award myself, like just me standing there by myself, while all the other kids who had the talent show had all of their parents come. And I just realized that the award was my source. That was the thing that gave me value because nobody was there to tell me I was valuable. Right. And so that's what I mean about outsourcing your value. Sometimes we just seek it.
Right. I can 100% relate to that because I feel like, well, it was interesting in tennis. I keep thinking I have value if I win the game, but you can be against another competitor that's really tough and you could play super well and still lose the game. And so it can't be about the outcome. It has to be about really, did you bring it?
Exactly. Yeah. And I didn't know that until I was an adult, right? That I had to be the best version of myself today compared to my best version of myself yesterday. But I was always looking at the next person. Well, Natalie has a great house. I need a great house too. Why don't I have that? This person has a great car. Why don't I have a great car? Like that, it was always this comparison thing and always a thing of if I reach six figures, I'll have value. Well, I reached six figures and I still didn't feel that great. So it took time for me to realize that my value was innate. It was from God. I believe in God. I have a lot of faith in God. And I believe that I now like solidly know that my value comes from Him and Him alone. And before it was from the world, everything everybody else told me. Now when someone says, "Oh my God, Neena, you're amazing. Thank you." And that's it. Before when it was like a thank you. Oh, and you too, because, like I had to like immediately give it back because I wasn't worthy of what you were just telling me. And I realize now, yeah, that's not the case. I actually thank you so much for the compliment, period. That's it. Right. And I had to learn that. That's hard to do.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what daily practice helps you with taking that value in or knowing that for yourself?
I think this is not going to be a shock to anyone because I'm sure people already heard this, right? But I have my CEO meetings with God every morning. And my CEO meetings with God every morning is that God is my CEO of my business and my life. And I even created a journal for it because I realized how powerful this was in my life. And these CEO meetings are literally, I listen to worship music. I sit down and I read a scripture. I break down that scripture. What does that mean to me? I start journaling. I start speaking what that scripture means and what it is that God is maybe asking me to give up or to receive. And this is a CEO meeting I have with God every morning, right? And it's choosing to be still and obedient in over what I'm feeling that day. So what I did recently, Natalie, is I actually deleted all of my social apps from my phone. Because what I was finding for a while is that I would wake up and because I am a lot on social media and all of my videos and everything are all over the place that I had to check, how did my video do? Or did anybody DM me? And that was the start of my day, Natalie? No, no. When I started to realize, what are you doing? Like you're getting lost in the sauce here. You're overwhelmed, you're overwhelmed. You're looking at things. You're getting bogged down. You're getting upset. Like what's happening? So I had to delete all of that because it was overwhelming. Not just that, politics. I was getting deep into politics. Like, what is this person saying? And what is that person saying? And what is the news saying here? And I realized this is all fear mongering. It's all theatrics. It's all a way to keep us down. I can't do it anymore. Right. And so that's one of the practices is I deleted all of the apps from my phone. If I have to check them, I'll do it from my computer once a day, period. No more than that. Right. And it has been the most liberating, amazing, beautiful thing I have ever done because I can't believe how long I was sticking my head in my phone to go through Instagram and YouTube and TikTok and all the freaking social media apps. I can't do it anymore. So now I have my CEO meetings with God. I pause, I listen, I write, and it has been transformative. Like, seriously, I don't know what I've been waiting for. It's too freaking long. I've been waiting too long.
I could see that for sure, especially because it can cause you to be more light driven than reactive.
Yes. And we are, I think I was living a life, I mean, up until recently, just very, very reactive, not proactive at all, not in peace, but very much reactive, right? Like, where's my next client coming from? Where's my next, my paycheck coming from? Where's my next this? Where's my next? And this desperation coming in. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You know? And I help women all the time get out of their own way, yet I'm in mine all the time. tripping over myself all the time. It's amazing how we can do that. I think it's something to be said about helping someone else. I think there's something to be said about how, maybe looking outside of you for something. If you are in your head too much, maybe go to a soup kitchen, help somebody else, and get out of your own way so that you're not reactive, but proactive.
And I like that. And you wrote the book Hit Me With Your Best Shot, which I love that title. In A Bold Move, you had to really take a step back. And what you do now, what you're describing, is taking a step back and looking at yourself. And that takes courage. It takes discipline. It takes maturity. What fears came up as you prepared to share your story publicly, and how did you overcome those fears?
There were so many fears. I think the biggest one was the fear of judgment because I've been judged so much in my life. Having a kid young, it was like, oh, you're never going to amount to anything, that kind of stuff. And, I felt like that fear of judgment or being misunderstood, being dismissed, or there she goes again, stirring up trouble, that kind of thing. Because my family, I knew, was going to possibly disown me, when I wrote this story, my story, and I did it anyway. I feel like in life, shame is going to try to silence you, but obedience will win, right? And this is something I felt like God was putting on my heart for a long time to do. And although I was extremely fearful and I was full of a lot of shame over the things that have happened to me and over the things that I had done, that I realized that it was what was keeping me silent for so long in my life. And it was time for me to understand that my story wasn't for me. It was for whatever woman needed to hear it or see it for herself. And when I released the story, a lot of women, I was shocked actually, a lot of women that I didn't expect to read the book read it, and were coming to me like, how in the world, like, how did you do that? Or how did you survive that? And then I had some women come to me and say, Neena, that happened to me when I was molested, or I was beaten, or I this, and they were just pouring their hearts out. And I'm like, this was so worth it. It was so worth it. It was so worth being judged. It was so worth being misunderstood. It was so worth beating shame. It was amazingly worth it, right? So all those fears came up, every single one of them. And even to this day, like if somebody says, oh my gosh, I read your book, the little bit of fear does still come up. What does this person think of me? How are they looking at me right now? Do they see somebody who's not a victim anymore? Or do they see somebody who's a victim? I don't know. I can't judge what they think of me, but I know that I believe in doing things afraid and doing it anyway. So a lot of fears.
Wow. I'm just curious, how did your family react?
My mother, I didn't even tell her, to be honest, that I was writing this book because I didn't want her to know. She's still alive, of course. And me and her have a pretty decent relationship, right? But I had to do it anyway, Natalie. And so she didn't speak to me. She read it. She was pissed, right? I don't even know who brought her the book, but somebody brought her the book. And I probably was in the family because they're all, shady that way, right? So somebody needed to make sure that they put a monkey wrench in the program, which they did. She didn't speak to me for like 8 months. And it was super tough. And one day I just said, screw this. And I went to her house and I knew she didn't want to see me. She did not. She barely looked my direction. And I said, I know you don't want to see me. And I know you read the book. And she's like, you're a liar. Blah, blah. I said, am I, Mom? Like, am I though? And I said, so since the book is out, and you're pissed off anyway. We're going to do this. You and I, we're going to do this. And we sat at that table. It was hard, like hard to tell her truths to her face that I knew she was denying for 35, 40 years. You know what I mean? It was hard. And she listened. She was pissed, but she listened. And it kind of ended in a very sour note. We didn't say like, I hate you or anything, but I kind of kissed her and walked away. And that was the end of that. And then one day I came back to our house again. And because to me, Natalie, I feel like in my life, I've always taken life by the horns. And I'm like the type of person that I won't stay a victim anymore. I just refuse to do that. But I also wanted her free, if that makes any sense. It wasn't just for me to be free. I wanted her free too. And so we battled, we wrestled a little bit again. And then I said, you know what, Mom, I'm actually sorry. Because I know it was hard to see your daughter at 14, pregnant, at 15, having a kid. I know that I was rebellious and angry. I know that I did a lot of things that didn't make you proud. And I'm so sorry because I think at that moment I had this epiphany like, hey, Neen, how about the fact that you're not perfect either? And your mom wasn't perfect either. And when I said that, she looked at me, which was the first time in a long time. And she said, I'm sorry too. And that's all I needed. That's all I needed. I hugged her. She hugged me. We have been amazing since, right? And that was maybe 2020 or 2021 because I wrote the book in 2018. So it was like 2019 or 2020 when that happened. And it's been amazing. I mean, absolutely amazing to forgive and to be forgiven. It was beautiful.
I thank you for sharing that aspect of the book writing and talking with your mom. I really appreciate that. It kind of makes
Oh,
me
thank
want to
you.
cry.
Yeah, I cry when I think about it too, because it's so beautiful. Because now she's, much older and she's having a little bit of heart issues going on. And I'm like, I'm so grateful that I paused and obeyed God because God was like, you need to go there. You need to see her because I was being just as stubborn as her. I'm like, well, she doesn't want to talk to me. Well, but I obeyed. And I'm so grateful that I did, because if she, God forbid, passes away, me and her now are whole, but I still had to live for the truth of what my life was. And that was the hardest part. I had to face that point in life where you still have to do what's true for you, even if it's going to hurt someone else. Yeah.
Again, courage. That is so courageous. And many people in our audience feel that they need to be more ready before they can start, or more qualified, or more healed, or more confident. Like they're not acting on that courage. So, or acknowledging the fear and doing it anyway. What's your response to them when the voice says to them, who am I to do this?
Yeah. Who are you to do this? You're everything to do this. You're everything to do this. Who told you that you're not? Right? God doesn't call the qualified. This is how I feel. I feel like he qualifies you when you're called. I feel like you are going to be qualified for whatever it is that you are supposed to be doing, right? Action starts building your confidence. It's not the other way around. You don't need to be completely confident. You need to just go. And then you're going to mess up. Great, because you're going to learn. And then go to the next one. And then go to the next thing. And then go to the next thing. And you're going to be qualified as you go. You are not going to have to show up completely knowing everything. The truth is that you are able to do this and you only need to be a chapter ahead. Stop trying to be 20,000 feet ahead of somebody. Ridiculous. Okay. You just have to go one chapter ahead. And the reason I also say that is because a lot of times we feel like we have to know everything, Natalie. And the issue with that is when you know everything or you know it all, you cannot connect with someone who doesn't know anything because they think you're too far ahead anyway. So it almost disqualifies you, for you to think that you are like this amazing guru. And then the person trying to come to you is at the very, very beginning. They're going to think, what am I can't learn anything, or this person's so far ahead. How am I ever going to catch up? So just show up for you so that you can show up for others. That's it. Simple.
So
Simple.
you invited me as a guest on your podcast. So thank you
Yes.
for that. Straight talk, no sugar added. And it's, all about self-belief that that needs more truth than comfort. Your story of how you told your story, even when it was uncomfortable for your family, is definitely a great example of straight talk, no sugar added, and it's freeing. So what's a truth about self-doubt or fear that women need to hear in order to rise?
Oh my gosh, I think the biggest one is fear. They're so afraid. But honestly, I know there's an acronym for fear, which is, what is it? Something not being real.
Yeah.
I forgot what the acronym is,
Yeah, me
right?
too.
But for me, it's face and eliminate all restrictions. If you're being restricted, just face and eliminate all restrictions. That's what fear means. Because fear is not failure, y'all. It's feedback. Stop thinking of fear or not doing something as, oh my God, I completely failed. I can't do this. No, it's just feedback, right? Fear is a liar. All right. So self-doubt and all of that will often mask itself, right? And it'll come out like, oh, I'm just afraid. No, you're probably struggling a little bit with some self-doubt, right? And so some unhealed wounds that are coming, right? And you can't heal what you're hiding from. So if you're afraid, why am I afraid? Ask yourself questions. Make yourself answer these questions. Why am I afraid? Don't just allow the fear to come in and then paralyze. No, ask it. What are you here for? What are you here for? What am I afraid of? What's going to actually happen if I come out with that program, or I come out with a video, or I start the podcast, or whatever the thing is, right? You have to realize that you cannot heal if you don't feel it. You got to feel it to heal it, right? So just come at it, understand that you can do this, whatever this is for you, and stop doubting yourself, because you can rise above all of those things if you just step into what it is you're being called to do.
And what's a piece of advice that you wish you'd believed earlier in your journey?
I think the biggest one for me was that you don't have to earn your worth. You already have it. And I know that sometimes people are like, yeah, I hear that all the time, but that's not how I feel. That's okay. I don't care about your feelings. Not somebody who really cares about your feelings, because feelings are chaos, right? Feelings are chaotic. You're happy one moment, sad one moment. You're feeling great one moment, not feeling great one moment. So let's not do feelings. Let's do facts, right? And so what I do when people come into the program is I have this big long sheet that I do with them that is about their foundations. Who are they? What do they bring to the table? What do they love to do? What are their spiritual giftings? What does that look like? How do you share that with the world? All that kind of stuff, because those are facts. These are things that you're actually doing. I don't care about your feelings. I'm sorry, y'all. I do come from my business is called Straight Talk, No Sugar Added. So do I care that you're going through something? Heck yeah, I care about that. But I won't let that deter me from seeing the beauty of who you are and the person that you are meant to be. So you can come to me with all kind of shenanigans, right? But I'm still going to look at you as the gift that you are to this world and what you can bring in it, right? So that's how I would answer that question, right? I wish that I believed sooner. That's what I wished I believed sooner, that I did not have to earn my worth.
I love that. So before we go into the insider questions, insider group questions, and these are for the Spark members who like to hear answers to really amazing questions and amazing answers, and also the Unsealed group who like to get some more deeper connection. I'd like to know, I'm sure a lot of listeners that would love to get a hold of you, get some coaching, definitely get onto the podcast, to listening to the podcast. Where can they find more about you?
Well, you can look me up anywhere. So if you look up Neena Perez, which is Neena Perez, or Straight Talk, No Sugar Added. Honestly, I have a team that checks all the DMs and all the emails and stuff. So you can reach me anywhere. So if you look up those two things, I think you'll find me absolutely everywhere. This is why I have a team, because I can't do this myself. But yeah, anywhere you want to find me, you can find me.
Excellent. So, and we'll have all of your links in the notes as well, so folks can find you there. So now we're going to go to the insider bonus questions. So thank you so much for being here. I am so looking forward to this episode being released, and I think it's going to be a hugely powerful episode, an important part of season 3, where we talk about forming a network. And in order to form a network with others, you really need to know yourself. And so this will be part of that first part of knowing yourself. And I think knowing yourself through the eyes of a loving God is key.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. You're an amazing host. I really appreciate your questions. They were thoughtful. And I love conversations where somebody actually thought ahead of how is it that they want to flow the conversation. So I really appreciate you. And for your listeners who are listening, they need to really start digging deep, subscribing, sharing the podcast, making sure that you are everywhere. So thank you for having me here, Natalie.
Thank you. Today's conversation with Neena Perez reminded us that our past does not disqualify you. It prepares you. We promised you 3 things at the start of this episode, and we delivered. You heard how Neena stopped outsourcing her value and reclaimed her worth from within. You saw how survival, when reframed, becomes undeniable strength. And you witnessed the courage it takes to step into healing, even when it means confronting broken relationships like Neena did with her own mother. That's the heartbeat of season 3 of UnCeiling You. Knowing yourself deeply so you can rise, connect, and build authentic networks. And that's what this podcast is all about, helping you break through the ceilings inside and around you so your light can fully shine. If you're ready to take this even deeper, join us at the Unsealing Zone. That's where we continue these conversations with insider questions, actionable steps, and a community of women who are walking this journey with you. Because Unsealing You isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. And your next step is awaiting you inside the Unsealing Zone. Until next time, remember, your worth is already yours. Keep unsealing you.